and welcome to the Women of Color in Business podcast. I am Lynette Cottrell, your host, and I am so delighted you decided to join us today. We are going on a transformative journey of embracing radical self-love and unlocking the full potential in both our personal and business lives. This podcast is dedicated to empowering us, Black women entrepreneurs, to break free from self-limiting beliefs and guiding us towards our best self. So if you're just starting your business or you've been at it for a while but feel stuck, we got you. Welcome to your safe place. We honor your unique business journey. Here is where you remove your mask, wear your own style of comfort, and get ready to soar. Together, we will grow exponentially and challenge the statistics of how our businesses headed and founded by Black women entrepreneurs, start, grow, and last. So enjoy this great episode and be sure to help us grow by letting your sisters in business know about us so they can also follow us, like us, give us 5 stars, and leave comments. We want to hear from you and know what you want to hear from us. Together, we're going to build a great ecosystem here, impacting the number of Black women-owned businesses that grow and last. All right, sisters, let's jump right into it.
Well, thank you so much for having me on your platform. It's so exciting to be in front of a new audience. And I think the best way to describe myself is that my name is Dr. Taryn. I am or was a school superintendent living the dream on paper. But behind the scenes, I was feeling quite exhausted and frustrated and stuck. I had learned pretty early on in life, about 6 years old is my first memory of this. I learned really early how to play it safe. I learned the importance, at least, of being palatable. And I think or at least in my experiences, and I think it's a shared experience amongst people of color, particularly women of color, that being palatable creates some sense of safety in our lives, right? Things could get dangerous if we are too much of ourselves at some point. But the risk in that it is sometimes and oftentimes I find worth the reward. So we'll get there. But I was playing it safe, sometimes seeking approval specifically from my teachers. This is my life growing up, and following all the shoulds of a system, right? That tells you what success is supposed to look like,
Right.
and how you should be, until I made a pivot that really changed everything for me. And so today I am building $1 million movement. It's in motion. It's transforming lives. It's helping women and change makers break free from expectations and being able to step boldly in their purpose and leading fearlessly with confidence and fulfillment and making sure that they feel the impact every single day. Because for me, I had my dream job. I was at the top of a career. So what I really wanted to know was I impacting the very people I wanted to impact?
Okay.
So, yeah, that's a little bit about me and what I'm here to do. It's all about creating an experience that lights you up and gives others the permission to do the same in their life. So that's what I want to do. Just transfer that energy using the only way I know how, which is through transformational leadership.
Okay, I love that. You said a lot that you said there I resonate with, and I'm sure my audience can too. one thing that I felt when you were speaking is the concept of us as Black women playing small, like you said, to keep it safe, playing small to in the areas that we've been trained to know this is acceptable. Anything outside of these lines is not acceptable. And it takes us a while, it takes an experience for us to be aware that, okay, is the acceptability making me happy? Is it bringing me joy? Is it, can I even ask that question, right? Is that
Yeah.
even something I can delve into, or should I just stay on between the safe lines? Um,
Yeah, and you know what? I'm a mother, and when you're sharing that this experience of this is acceptable for you, but it's unacceptable for you, but maybe acceptable for another group. You made me think about some of the conversations as Black mothers we
uh-huh.
have with our children very early on too.
Yes.
I remember talking to my then 3 and 4 year old, who is now 18 and preparing to go to college. But I remember talking to him about the things that he might be allowed to do in school that his friends who don't look like him are going to be allowed to do. So he can't do this, right? Be careful not to do this, say this, because you'll get in trouble before they will, right?
Yes,
And so
yes,
I call that out as you're talking about what's acceptable for one and not acceptable for another. I think about the small ways that we do this.
yes,
And when we're doing it and we're sharing that, we're doing it out of safety,
yes.
right? But there comes a point in our adult life, and really, I would challenge us to kind of allow even our young people to explore advocacy and empowerment and agency for themselves at a younger age, right? This is something I learned as a mother. I didn't necessarily walk my child into a 4 year old classroom and say, you have agency. You can do
Right,
whatever you can do whatever you want in this room. That's not what I did. I did what I thought would make him safe, and I gave him all the rules, right?
right, right.
But as we grow and we learn and we know better and we do better, I would challenge us as parents to allow our children to explore agency and empowerment early, because that's exactly what was necessary for me to make my big pivots to step fully into joy.
Got it, got it. So tell us about that. What was your big pivot? And what was your process of stepping into it? So coming from this framework, this mindset of let me stay in between the lines and stay comfortable, what was it that really prompted you to make that pivot and be bold enough to step out of the lines?
Well, in all honesty, we make many pivots in our lives, and I did too. But the one big pivot that I think really changed everything for me, because it launched my business, it launched my book, it launched the career that I have now, that really feels like there's no end to this work, which I love so much, right? Is when I was having my third baby. And
Uh-huh.
so here I am, I'm at the top of my career. I really feel like I'm in my dream job. Now,
Ah,
it's not perfect,
mm-hmm.
but it's the most money I've made, the most influence I had, the most power I've had,
Ah,
um, impact I felt like I could make. I felt like it was the dream position for me. I was able to take care of my family. There was so much pride in the work I was doing. And I loved it. I really did.
uh-huh,
And within this journey of me being at the top of my game, I decided, you know what? It's time for us to have our third child. It feels right. It's now or never.
uh-huh,
And so we do all the things. We do the blood work so we can find out the sex of the baby super early, all the stuff I didn't even know you did before. And so
uh-huh,
everything was new for me. Um, and we get a call from our doctor, And our doctor tells us to come into the office. And we thought, oh, that's weird. But, we've not done this blood work before. And maybe this was something special they do to announce the sex of the baby, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
There, and we can immediately feel that there's a problem. We sense this from the environment and the seriousness of our meeting.
Uh-huh.
And what we find out is that our son has a 99.9% chance of trisomy 21, which is also known as Down syndrome. And
Okay.
so,
Wow.
yeah, so the interesting thing about this is that prior to this meeting, I had sat in several meetings with parents of children with disabilities. That is nothing new to me, right? But what I think is so powerful about when something hits your front door,
Uh,
there is an immediate change in how personal it feels and
mm,
how much it impacts you. So I'm getting this news. We can clearly, by the way we're getting this news, we can sense that this isn't a celebration, right? They're not presenting it with congratulations. They're
right.
presenting it with there is a problem. And
Mm,
so immediately I start to think, what did I do wrong? I did something wrong. What went
yes.
wrong? From the moment we knew we were pregnant, we had envisioned a child, and what information we were given at this time was a complete juxtaposition to what we had envisioned. This
Uh,
is not the baby we had envisioned, right?
right.
And so immediately in that moment, there was a sense of grief and guilt and shame
Mm-hmm.
and all the things that put you in a spiral. Now they start to talk to us about our options, and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, like this is just nothing like I experienced.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, you're telling me it's a boy, you're telling me I have this diagnosis of Down syndrome, and then you're offering me a list of options, and it's all a lot of information. But it was also in the moment of the options being presented to me that I felt very, very clear in that moment about my purpose.
Uh,
And there's definitely a timeline of me really pouring into this purpose and getting close to it. But it really was the start of this was at this moment, because for me, my purpose was clear. I knew that even though I was getting this news that I didn't quite know what it meant for me and my family, what I was clear about was I wanted to carve out space in this world for this little boy where his sense of belonging was not in question.
mm,
A place where he could exist without conditions about his worth. Because I could tell in the moment, the way the information was coming, there was some question about his worth.
right. Right.
And I was questioning, could I be his mother?
Mm,
And that question did linger for a while, but I was clear about the purpose. And so as I walked through some of that shedding of grief, shedding of pain, shedding of guilt, shedding of the shame, I leaned in to what it would look like, what it would mean. How would I authentically be his mother and truly bring him into a world where, even if it wasn't his little bubble, he felt that he was worthy of being
uh,
here.
mm,
And it led me to think, well, who doesn't want to feel like they're worthy of being here? We
yes.
all do.
Uh-huh.
And that led me to really thinking about a business purpose and how I can help others be true change makers in their community, not just people who go to work and do the job, right? But people who live a life that lights them up and serves the people they want to serve in intentional ways, because they too believe that the people in their community, them, their family, and every ripple effect after that deserves to be here. We deserve to have this joy. So
Hmm.
it really became, he became a flashlight for
Right.
everything that I would do thereafter.
That's amazing. That's amazing how I can only, and I'm sure my audience, we can only imagine what that process must have felt like for you in real time. Because I just get the feeling from your great storytelling that it was a lot of information at one time that you had to digest, then unpack over time. But immediately what was clear to you was what you wanted to offer this child. So I'm getting all this information. It's different from what I had planned. It's throwing me for a loop. But in the midst of all that, what I am sure of is I want this child to have a loving place to land.
That's
There's
right.
still a lot more to figure out, but that I am sure of. And
That's
it's
right.
amazing how that led you that. So the spirit of that desire and that passion led you to building a business with that same desire and passion for others.
Yeah, yes. And not all in that order, but yes,
Mhm.
right? I think
Mhm.
you're right about all the things in between. But that's exactly what else is part of my business is helping women and change makers pivot through these processes and these ideas that they have of impactful and intentional and bold work that they want to do because there's a lot of pivots that are needed
Yes.
when you want to do real impactful stuff.
Yes. Because you don't know what you don't know, right? So you start out with plan A, and this is what it's going to be like. La la la. You get into the weeds of, and you're like, okay, it's not going to be like that. But instead of quitting, what will it be like? What can I do? How can I change this to still have the impact I want to have? And that's one of the elements as entrepreneurs that we have to deal with because we start out with a certain target market. We start out with a certain idea. And what we have to realize is if we intend to grow, then some of that is going to change because growth acts for change. So
That's
you
right.
can't stick to the same idea and expect to have growth, right? You have to kind of release yourself to the growth process and say, okay, that's what I thought it would be, but now what is it really going to be? How can I really do this?
Yes, the most transformational change makers aren't just visionaries. They are masters of the pivot.
Mm, makes a lot of sense. It makes a
Yes.
lot of sense.
And in a world where we are really rewarding busyness, right? How many emails do we get a day from all these entrepreneurs that are out in the world, right? Whether it's a big Fortune 500 company or Gap, or I mean, everyone's inundating our our
Yeah,
inboxes, right?
yes,
We reward busyness over alignment,
yes,
right? We all need to scale to this million bazillion dollar business. And listen, I definitely have revenue goals that are in the six, seven, or I'm sorry, in the 7 and 8 figure range, right? But many women, particularly who are change makers, they feel stuck in that rut of scaling the way we saw the first business scale or the business adjacent to us scale, right? And it's sometimes we get into something and it no longer fulfills us, whether we're entrepreneurs or whether we're in a C-suite position, right? And we know it feels icky. We know we feel the nudge, but we don't know how to shift in a way
yes,
that truly makes us feel fulfilled and still have impact.
yes,
And
yes,
that's the actual transformational work that I do. I help women and change makers figure out the art of the pivot for them and lead them into strategy and action that's bold, but purposeful and intentional at the same time.
wonderful, wonderful. I love that. I love that. So, in starting your business, what would you say you found to be your biggest challenge?
Hmm. I think the biggest challenge in starting anything um, is sometimes, especially in entrepreneurship, I think it's difficult to start something where there's no roadmap. But then I also find it challenging to, in the long run, it's also challenging to think you can just walk a well-worn path and that too will make you happy.
Oh,
So I think there's challenges in both, right? They can be pretty frustrating in the beginning when there's no roadmap at all, because you're
yes.
kind of like, well, what do I do? What does success look like? Well, this person said it should be six figures in my first year. And this person said, no, you need to go for 1 million. And this person said, I need a 20-person team to be successful. But this person said I can do it as a solopreneur, right? I mean, what's my roadmap? What am I supposed to do, right? So that can be pretty frustrating and feel
Mm,
challenging when there's no roadmap. But I also think that when someone lays out a roadmap for you and or they have shown you a way and you think you should follow it to that T, I think that can also be challenging, because what you find later is that that well-worn path may not be the one that fulfills you and brings you the impact that you align, that is in most integrity with you. So then you end up being at a point in your career or in your business that doesn't feel aligned. And that point can be very challenging as well.
yes, yes.
So I
That's
think it's all about finding the alignment that's most connected to your integrity and your authenticity, so that you can find your path regardless, because it's connected to who you are and who you want to serve.
mm, I like that. I like that. I often say that every entrepreneur needs a therapist and a business coach,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. I
They
have
need
both.
they need yes, they need a therapist to deal with the past, right? Because every trigger you have is going to come up when you're trying to build a business. You need a business coach to deal with the future, someone to hold you accountable. Like you said, you may have a roadmap that you're trying to follow, but what happens when you feel unaligned in that roadmap? There are no forks in the road to say, but if you feel this way, go over here, but
That's
if this
right.
doesn't fit you, go over here. So being able to talk that through with someone in a business community and just have your thoughts heard, right? Get some feedback that helps you to stay aligned to what your purpose was. Someone can help you remember why you first started doing this, right?
That's right. And I will also include, right? I love how you put the therapist for the past, the business coach for the future, and I think listening to yourself for the present.
Yes, yes. And that's what I call radical self-love.
Yeah. I love
Radical
that.
self-love makes you responsible for always listening to that voice, right? With in spite of what the outside noise says, I love me enough to take the greatest care of me that I'm going to stay aligned. I'm going to figure out what keeps me in line with what my true passion and my true purpose is.
That's
So, yeah.
right. That's right. Because you know what, when I think about, I mean, when I opened my business, it blew up really quickly for, I guess, traditional terms, right?
Uh-huh.
I had grown or launched this business to six figures in 90 days. And then there was this momentum that came. There were definitely ups and downs. And then I was walking into six-figure months. And so what I say about that is I don't actually offer any quick fix money tactics to get your pockets richer in X amount of days.
Right,
What I do offer, though, and what I think is the key to even the success that I've had and the success that friends and mentors that I know have had, is that when you are in integrity with yourself, you make things happen. You don't wait around. You don't hope for someone to hand you an opportunity. You're not afraid to speak up for what you deserve. You make moves that others wouldn't dream of when you're in integrity. And I think that is what launches great businesses. That is
Mm,
what sustains great businesses. It's you being able to do what you were calling radical self-love, right?
right.
Being able to listen to yourself and know that you have unshakable knowledge about who you are and where you want to go in your life. And although you may have a vision, right, when you are in integrity, you also are aware that that vision may need to shift a bit so I can get where I'm intended to go.
Got it.
I know that my vision isn't even just it. That's just what I can imagine. There's something
Right.
beyond that.
Yes, yes, I love that. Definitely. That's part of the journey, right?
Mhm.
You start out with what you can envision at the time, based
Right.
on what you know at the time. But you have to allow yourself the space to learn more and to grow more so that that vision can also grow. Because if you were given all the details of your vision in the beginning, you'll be overwhelmed and be like, no, I can't do that.
That's right.
That's
That's
impossible. So you just start with the first step. And I imagine, so listen to you talk about your journey. I imagine someone visits your website, reads your details, and say, well, in 90 days, she grew a six-figure income. I wonder if
yeah.
she could show me how to do that.
Of course I can, but what I wouldn't be, what the strategies would be, wouldn't necessarily be what one might find to be your business strategies, right?
Mm,
I'm not going to probably walk you through making a funnel, right? I'm
mm,
not probably going to walk you through how to do paid ads. In fact, I have never done one ad for my business. So
mm,
I do understand how they work and I could probably support someone in that work, but that's not the crux of integrity,
mm. Got it.
right?
What was your process for growing your business?
Well, my process was pretty unique to me. And that's that integrity piece, right? And so when I was it's a very interesting story. At one point in my launch of my business, I was breastfeeding a newborn. My two children were home from homeschooling because this is the middle of or the beginning of COVID and our
Oh,
schools were closing. So I have now a preschooler or kindergartner who needs to do Zoom school for a few hours a day. And then I have a middle schooler who needs to do Zoom for a couple hours a day. I'm also on maternity leave. And I said to myself, well, you know what? There's a lot going on in the world. And if we all recall that time, there was
yeah.
a lot going on in the world. There was so much racial unrest.
Yes.
There was all this news coverage of such disheartening things happening in the world. And I wasn't one that was taking to social media to share how I felt. I decided to write a book. I
Mm,
decided to put it somewhere where my legacy can live
mm,
because I really had something to say. And I knew that social media was not the place for people to learn. And I wanted to
mm,
share what information I had about how we need to rethink our spaces so that they are more joyful, so that they are more inclusive, and so that we can do more to value the cultural capital that specifically Black and Brown people bring to the table.
mm.
And I
Wonderful.
wanted to write about that. And I knew if that were something I posted online, people who did not have the knowledge and the efficacy about what I actually knew, I knew that there would be people that would try to just tear that down who didn't even know me. So I thought, I want to put this in a place for the real knowledge seekers.
Mm.
And what do they say? You want, I think that unfortunately, I think the quote is if you want to keep something from someone, put it in a book, right? Because
Uh-huh.
so many of people don't read, but I think for the people who do read and want to know, what do I need to be doing differently? They're going to pick up a book. They're going to
Right.
pick up some peer-reviewed research. They're going to go to websites that they believe have some citations behind it and some backing behind it, right?
Yes,
And so
yes.
that's what I wanted to do. And I wanted this book to be my business card because I thought, you know what? There was some political chaos going on in the workplace that I was in, and I'm home on maternity leave. So there's me dealing with all the home stuff, right? But I'm also getting uh, an earful from coworkers about how the meticulous maternity plan I put in place was just dissolving right before
Oh,
everyone's eyes.
wow.
And I thought, you know what? There's a lot that I can do, right? I can go back into my position and I can fight for my job again, and I can make sure that people know I've earned a position and I'm here to keep it. Or I could leave the mess.
Mm.
I
Like
could,
so many of us did during COVID, right?
yeah,
Mm.
yeah. And I decided to leave that mess. And I don't say mess in a way of disrespecting the people that are there. There were so many beautiful and important people that helped me to be where I'm at right now. And I've learned so much from so many people. But when I talk about the mess, I mean the mess that's not aligned to who I want to be and how I want to serve.
Got it. So when you say your maternity program was melting, you mean the things that you put in place to run in your absence. So while
Yeah.
I'm on maternity leave, I put all these things in place for all my teachers, my staff, my people, so that things can still flow fluently, right, without skipping a beat. But while I'm away, other people come in and they mess the whole system up, right?
Well,
They-
power corrupts, right?
yes.
So right. So I think what unfortunately, and I think many of your listeners have probably been in this situation, right? Where where there's an opportunity for someone to leverage a situation, people do, right?
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, I was not in any concern of going back and if I desired to remind people who I was willing to do that, but I didn't need to do it. I did not need to seek validation from anyone. I was very clear about who I was and what I could be doing. That's the integrous part about it. When you know
Mm.
you know who you are with certainty. And
Yes.
so that knowing that no matter what happens, you're going to make the right choice because it's your choice. That was the flex.
Mm. Got it.
So
Got
I
it.
said, you know what? I'm going to try something new. And I am going to allow myself to grieve this dream job.
Mm. I love that you said that. That's a that's very big because a lot of times we are not given the space to grieve it, right? We're either expected to get over it, right? It's gone, get over it. What is your attachment to it? We're not allowed to grieve things in our life. So I love that you said that's very healthy
Yeah,
to
and it hurt.
grieve. Yes.
It definitely hurt. This was my identity,
Yes.
right? I was known for the work I was doing.
Ah,
Was I loved it, but what I learned during this grieving process, and every time there is a part of me or my work or my evolution that I need to grieve, I know this now, but in the process, I had to learn through this grief that there was absolutely something greater on the other side.
I
There was
love that.
absolutely something greater. I did, though, need to let myself go through the pain and the process of seeking that on my own.
Mm, mm. I love that. Wonderful, wonderful. So, in your process of going from your career to your business, did you have any mentors around you during that process, or how did you navigate that? change.
Yes. Well, I believe anything that we want to do in life or anything that we want to become, we need to become educated consumers of that thing.
Mm,
So I definitely absorbed so many books and I listened to podcasts. I listened to entrepreneurs that were where I wanted to go. I connected with um, communities. I started to become friends with other entrepreneurs. I mean, all of that helps you to see your new identity. And I did
mm.
this before I actually had the six-figure launch, right? I did this because I was starting the habit of becoming her now.
I love that. I love that. You said you said all this helps you to see your new identity. That is very key because you're stepping into something new. You can't be the same person you were in your previous position. There is a new identity emerging.
That's
Oh,
right.
I love that. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. So you went to resources, podcasts, you connected with other entrepreneurs, you researched people who were business owners who were doing what you wanted to do to learn about it. So you educated yourself with knowledge.
Yeah, and you know what? That's the researcher in me. Everyone has their own way of doing it, but all of this process, I want to share with the audience that a lot of this process was very much um, connected to who I was even as a little girl. And I actually do a lot of looking back to look forward
Uh-huh.
because when I was younger, and these are true stories that my mother still tells to this day, when I was about 7 years old, I decided for myself I wanted to take dance classes. And at that time, we still had the yellow pages. So I went and got the big telephone book, went through, searched up dance, went through the yellow pages, found things that were in my town, and I called places that I thought would be close enough for my mother to take me to. And I started making a list of dance classes that were in the evenings when my mom could take me. When she came home, she had a list of options for me, and I had already talked to the dance company to see if they had places for me. That's six.
Wow.
At 16 or 17, I actually ordered a car from a dealership with all the specs I wanted, the spoiler in the back, the 5-star alloy rims, all black, right? And they literally thought they were talking to a woman with, a job, insurance, uh, a mortgage, and they were talking to a 17-year-old girl. When they called to tell me at this time, your car is ready for pickup. I then say to my mom, hey, wouldn't it be great if we just looked at cars? Because I just want to imagine the car that I'm going to have. But this was the car that was ordered and ready for pickup.
Right, right.
So I bring you these stories because this is who I am. I'm a
Uh-huh.
researcher, right? I'm a researcher by nature. I'm also, I have a terminal degree, so I wrote a dissertation. I am a researcher. So it is natural for me to want to dive deeply into understanding what a journey would look like. But I bring this story to also remind your audience that there are basements and ceilings to every single, or I should say basements and attics, I guess, to every single quality trait that we have.
Hmm.
So because I'm a researcher, right, the ceiling of that, or the limitless awareness that I can have, I'm very much into knowing what a path would look like. The basement of that, though, is getting stuck in the research and not taking the action.
Um,
You see what I'm saying?
yes,
All of our
yes.
qualities, all of them, everything that we are right now is perfectly positioning us for the work we're here to do.
Mm.
There's nothing that you really need to change about yourself, but you do need to understand yourself well enough so you can know when you're too far in the basement Or
Yes.
too far in the sky and you need to get in reality. You've got to know yourself enough
Mm-hmm.
to stay balanced and present for
Mm.
the work. Because I might be able to tell you everything about building a business, but let me tell you, people who know how to build a business are the people who build businesses.
Right. Right.
Right?
Right.
Don't ever go learn how to build a business from someone who's not built the business that you dream of, right? Don't
Right.
get advice from that person. Get advice from the people that are doing what you want to do. And so I had to be in action with the same level of intentionality that I was in my just natural and unique researching mode.
Right. Wonderful, wonderful. I love that. So, two things I want to know. One is, how was your business funded when you got started? And two, how did you market your business to get customers?
So my business was funded by me.
Okay.
So
Mm-hmm.
there were no loans. I still actually have not taken out a loan on my business. I could, and I do believe there is good debt. So I think
Uh-huh.
if you are a listener out there and you are in the process of getting a loan for your business and you know that you're going to be able to repay that loan with integrity, please go do it. That was just not my path. But here's a big key to something that I did that maybe some of your listeners might be able to do. I went back to my employers that
Uh-huh.
employed me, right? That already knew I was of top high quality, and I made them my first clients.
Oh,
And
wow.
so I am definitely in the business of relationships and realizing the people before you or the path before you, there's connections there and there's connections on the path ahead. All of them can be helpful to you launching your business. And for me, when I wrote my book, I went back and I told people who knew me very well that I'm writing a book. Many of them supported my business, they helped launch my business, and they became my first clients. And they didn't
Wonderful.
have to think much about me because they knew me. They knew I was good for the work. They knew I already had um, an amazing resume, right?
Right.
So I want to encourage your listeners to be thinking about the work they're already doing and how they can use the identities of their past to help them launch into their future. Because it's all working for you. Everything that is going on in your life right now is for your good. When you're well positioned, you can use it that way.
Wonderful. I love that. Use the resources that
Yeah.
you're coming from to launch where you're going to.
Yes.
Because those people already know you. They know your skills. They know the quality of work you bring to the table. So there's no convincing. That's
That's right.
wonderful.
That's right. And you asked about marketing. And
Yeah.
so my book was very much a marketing tools. And so because I had this book that was I wanted to use as my business card, I started to use the book to help me market and talk about the work that I wanted to do. So when I originally launched, I launched specifically working with schools. Since then, my business has expanded to corporate offices and government offices and entrepreneurs. So it has definitely grown because everybody needs transformational leadership, or everybody has pivots either in their personal life, their organization, their professional career, right?
Yes.
So the work I'm doing is transferable, right? But I did definitely start in a niche or start in an environment that was I knew like the back of my hand.
Got it. Got it. I love that. So you started in one place, but you expanded to others.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Absolutely.
So during your business journey, what would you say was the best advice you've ever received?
Oh my gosh. I mean, there's so much good advice. Oh, so I mean, this one your listener's going to be like, I know, but I think um One very good piece of advice that we've already kind of talked about is listening to yourself. I think that's really good advice because really early on, particularly as women, we actually are taught to endure. We're
Mm,
taught to ignore how we feel about something
mm,
just to keep the peace, right?
mm.
And you think about how many places that happens. It happens in school,
Yes.
it happens at home,
Mm-hmm.
it happens in your marriages at times.
Mm,
It
yes.
happens with your siblings, right?
Mm,
There's so many
yes.
places where we're taught, specifically women, to just, I know you don't like the way that feels, but tuck it over there. Let's
Right.
not make a big deal about it. Well, what that does over time is it numbs the sensation that your body naturally gives you when something is off.
Mm,
And
mm,
so listening to my body, like I remember working with coaches and them helping me to listen, and they would ask me, how does it feel? And for a few times I couldn't feel anything. I'm
ah,
like, I don't know. And then over time, I could feel it maybe in my shoulders. I
mm-hmm,
could feel it in my belly. Or I would say it again later when no one was really looking, and I could feel the anxiety in my chest.
ah,
And that is when I started to realize, oh, your body knows before maybe you even know
yes,
how you feel about something. But
yes,
listen to that.
mm-hmm,
But it takes some practice. And
yes,
I think that's great advice because that should help you feel, or to help your audience feel very confident in that they know what they should be doing. You
mm-hmm,
know what you could be doing. You can listen to your body and get the signals. But where the tough part comes is in the implementation of what I need to do next. And I think
mm,
that's where the investment of someone who can be a flashlight for you is
yes,
necessary.
yes. Totally agree. You're so
Yeah,
right. Everything you just said is
yeah,
right on
right.
because yes, we get used to pushing down that alert or that message
Yeah,
till it becomes numb, and it takes work and practice to get back connected to it, right? To
right,
be able to sit in it and let it come up as it will and feel it, right?
right.
And two, so once we know what needs to be done, it helps exponentially to have a coach there to keep us accountable because our habit is being pleasing and not rocking the boat and saying, oh, well, it's not really that bad, but someone on the outside would say, no, you need to do ABCD. I'm going to check with you tomorrow and see if you did ABCD. That's a totally different experience than you listening to your mind, because a lot of times we let the logic of our mind override the intuition that our body is telling us. Mm.
Yeah, or we seek advisement from people who aren't going where we're going,
Oh,
right? And
yes.
sometimes the one thing that I learned in building my business was that some of my boat anchors, right? These are what an anchor does to a boat, right?
Mm-hmm.
It keeps
Holds it
it
down.
still, right?
Mm-hmm.
It
Yep.
holds it down, right? So some of my boat anchors were the closest to me,
Mm-hmm.
the people that knew my deepest and darkest fears,
Right.
the people who knew what made me excited about life, but also what made me nervous. These people were the closest to me. And when you're seeking advice from the people that are closest to you who aren't going where you want to go, and they end up being your boat anchors, is the picture not clear enough for you about how they may keep you stuck?
Ah,
Right? And
yes.
and sometimes they're not necessarily keeping you stuck intentionally. Sometimes they are.
You were saying that it should it not be clear to you that these anchors are going to keep you stuck.
Right. And it sometimes, right, these anchors are people who may love you, right? And they may be trying to in their minds keep you safe from something that they would never even think of doing,
Yes.
but you are made and built to do.
Yes.
So unfortunately, I had to learn sometimes the hard way that I had to keep ideas and dreams and sometimes even celebrations to myself until I really understood who were my boat anchors and who were able to come along with me on this journey because they were my biggest cheerleaders.
Yes. That is so key. I was just thinking earlier that sometimes we get conflicting um, messages when it comes to being an entrepreneur. So you have the school of thought that says, tell everybody what you're doing so they can keep you accountable. Then you have the school of thought that says, keep it to yourself, because if you tell it to people who can't see it, because they weren't given the vision, they will have you doubting that this is your vision and you can do this. And
Right.
I'm with you. I'm of the second school because usually we're not surrounded by other people who have an entrepreneur mindset or have the risk level for being an entrepreneur. So it stands to reason that if you are talking to someone with a different risk level, they're not going to say, yeah, go ahead and do that. I can see that for you, right? So to protect that vision and the energy that you're going to put into it, I'm of the mind that you should protect it and keep it to yourself as you grow through it.
Yeah, or at least until you're bold enough to do the thing that you know is best for you and not be impacted by anyone who doesn't believe that's your right next step, right?
Right.
And there definitely comes a point in your confidence where you could be sitting in front of the biggest and brightest guru in your industry. And when that guru tells you to do something that's not in alignment, you say, and respectfully, I will not be taking that advice, right? Because
Yes,
you
yes,
know yourself, right? Until then, perhaps you might not want to share everything because you may not be at that level of confidence to leave what you don't need and take what you do. Like there's a level of confidence and readiness that comes with that. And again, this is why knowing yourself and listening to yourself is probably the best advice one can give. And when well practiced, it is your tool to
yes,
decide what's best for you. Again, where you might want to get some support is the implementation of what your decision is, because
mm,
deciding on something and putting it into action are two very different things.
yes, yes. So you trust your gut for making the choice. And once you've made that decision, you get assistant on, okay, so how do I make this happen, right? What are the steps I can take? What are the resources I can use to make this happen? Because now I've decided what I'm going to do, but the how is where I can get assistance with.
Absolutely. I think if you are often seeking your what from all the kinds of resources that are around you, it can get pretty noisy.
Yes.
Right. So at some point after your idea generating and listening to for just maybe a brainstorm, what are you going to do based on what feels best for you? That is a very individual decision.
Yes.
And then how you make that happen, definitely, I believe, gets done faster with someone who can help you implement. And I use a framework to help people pivot, and I feel like the framework, not only feel like the transformations beyond um, with using the framework, it works, but I can tell you the framework works faster when you work with me because
Mm,
I'm just going to help you through many of those twists and turns, and I'm going to again, be that flashlight in the darkness for you. And we all know if you're walking through a dark room, even if it's your home, you walk a lot slower than you would if you had a flashlight.
Yes,
Right? Because
exactly.
you're making sure you're not stepping on something that might be on the
Right.
floor or tripping over something that might, right? And it can be your own home. You know this home. You're not fearful, but you're slower because you're in the dark. I want to illuminate the room for you and help you strategize so that you pivot with purpose, intentionality, and boldness. Your
Mm,
industry.
I love that. Wonderful, wonderful. So, in your business journey, what would you say when you get to those days? Because one of the things that we talk about a lot here on the podcast is radical self-love and self-care.
Yes.
A lot of times I find that we as Black women entrepreneurs, we feel guilty about resting. We
Yeah.
feel guilty about taking time off. And we kind of think like, especially since most of us start as solopreneurs, we think that every waking moment we should be doing something on our business, right? Either thinking about it or writing something down or doing something. And we get out of balance with our well-being. So what do you do when you feel like you're working through something and you need a reset? You need to take a break. How do you handle that? And do you have any regular self-care practices that you do on a daily, weekly, monthly basis?
So I'll start at the end of your question first. So yes, I have daily routines, I have weekly routines, and I have monthly routines.
Oh,
And so
wonderful.
yes, the one daily routine that I believe every single human should have is
Yes.
a morning routine. At
Mm.
minimum, I actually have a morning and a PM routine, but I think
Mhm.
at minimum, everyone should have a morning routine. And there was a time, and it's actually building back up to this, but at one point I had a 90-minute morning routine.
Okay.
And then, some pivots in my life happened, and that routine would shrink sometimes to 15 minutes, but it was still my morning routine and
Hmm.
ritual. And what
Got it.
it did was it allowed me to center myself so that the first thing I was doing was not responding to someone else's needs, but listening to my own.
Ah, love that. Love that.
So that
Yeah.
is why I think every human should have a morning routine. But as I shared, I have a morning routine, I have a PM routine, and all of that is really centered on identity work. The sharpest entrepreneurs, yes, they're figuring out their next strategy for their launch, but they're also really working on who they are
Mm,
like inside, right? They're really working on their identity and who their future self is, what iteration of themselves they are becoming. And so I spend a lot of time um, in that mode of really
mm,
thinking about where I want to go and how I can become her noun.
mm.
Um, when it comes to weekly routines, I love skincare. So
Okay.
I just happen to love, anything facial related.
Uh-huh.
Um, love the ability to kind of go to a spa, even if you can't go to like a spa and get a massage, being able to go somewhere where they're going to help you recalibrate, whether that's the chiropractor, right? Like
Uh-huh.
some of us
Uh-huh.
have chiropractors, like going somewhere where you can recalibrate your body, working out.
Ah.
I love moving my body. That has not always been something that I have done well. So for your listeners thinking, well, she just does it all. No, listen, this was not always what I did, but when
Mhm.
you know better, you do better.
Yes, yes.
And so I have done better, right? So I work out, I do Pilates. I love Pilates.
Mm.
And on a monthly basis, I am learning, and this is a fairly new in this year, to build in a lot of fun in my life.
Hmm, I
A
like
lot
that.
of fun. And so I have expanded um my calendar to include things that I want to do. Like I am a big Broadway fan, and so I'll either go to the city or I will see something off Broadway, but I love live performances, so I'm making
Uh-huh.
time for that. I love comedy. I'm making time for that. And I think that is important. A lot of times, and there may be a listener out here that's like, I don't even know what I like to do.
Yes,
That's the
yes,
work. That
yes.
figure that out. Figure out what you like to do. That
Mm.
matters. And specifically women, I don't even think anyone asked me. Like I remember someone asking me, "What is it that you like to do for fun?" And I was like, "Fun. Oh, I know that word. I do know that word, and I am a lot of fun, but what do I like to do for because I was so work, 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 work. And then
Yes,
work was my fun because meeting deadlines and hitting goals was fun. But guess what?
right.
There is another level of fun that requires nothing of you but to just be there and enjoy it. And
Yes,
that's not a
yes,
goal, right? Like,
yes, yes.
right? So for your listeners that are like, no, I do have fun hitting my goals. Yeah, I get you. I understand that vibe. I'm probably slightly a workaholic too. However, I'm talking about the fun that just requires you to be.
Hmm,
There is a place
wonderful.
for you to do just that. And I think it at minimum, there should be a monthly routine in that.
Love it.
And then your first part of the question was like, my process of getting there. So, true story, my mother, I remember probably 3 years ago, distinctly, my mother saying, Taryn, you just sound really tired. You should go to sleep. And I was thinking, like, what? Like, I was kind of confused by this advisement to take a nap because in my mind, I was like, there is so much I need to do. I don't have time to take a nap. And she said, well, why don't you just read a book that's not about growing yourself in any way?
Uh,
A story, it's
mhm.
fiction, it's
Right.
something you can just read for leisure. And I thought, who has time for that? Right? But let me tell you, I took her advice, and this is obviously before I have these robust routines, right? I want to say it was about 4 years ago, if not three. And I read a book. I started reading a book about whatever. Like, I think it was just a novel. And before long, I had fallen asleep. And when I woke up, I felt so good. And I called her and I said, I went to sleep. And she was like, see, girl, like I told you. Right. And I think there are moments when you think rest are for the other people who have
Yes,
time to rest.
yes.
Because that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm.
Rest was for those people over there. But now, I mean, I am building a business that has me working a few days a week. And so that is because I'm building in fun on Fridays and I'm building in mental health work for myself around therapy and just building on my identity and loving on myself on Mondays. And so I have strict calendar rules about protecting the potency of my being.
I love that. I love that.
And I welcome you to join me on that journey.
Yes, yes. Give them permission
Yes, I
to be in
welcome you.
control of their schedule, to
Yes.
schedule in fun and rest and things that they enjoy. Imagine that. That's
Yes,
revolutionary.
it is. It
Because we
is.
think rest, to your point, we think rest is for people who are not building something. That's for people who have nothing to do. They can rest, but I'm building something. I can't rest. Well, how good is your building going to be if you are tired, you can't think straight, you're getting ill, right? What's the quality of your ideas, of your implementation, of your creativity? from a tired mind and a tired body. So it's a necessity.
Right, right. And listening to your body allows you to work on these ebbs and flows, right? So when I wrote my book, and I actually have a book that is launching in a few weeks called The
Yeah.
Pivot Plan.
Uh-huh.
um, I wrote that book in less than, I want to say I started writing around November. And so, but what's that, less than 6 months? The
Yes.
first book I wrote in 11 months. And so I say that because I was writing in the middle of the night when I wrote
Um,
my book, right? So there
mhm.
are definitely times where we're putting in long hours, but when I tell you when those moments came, it was, I was in flow.
Mm,
It wasn't taxing to write.
right.
Words were falling out of me onto
Inspired.
the,
Yes.
yes, I was
Yes.
inspired. But then on the days when I couldn't feel the flow, I let it go.
Ah,
I just
imagine
let it
that.
go.
Imagine that. So,
Imagine.
so what was the title of your first book?
So my first book is called In All Lanes, and it's a book about empowering Black and Brown students, rethinking school and transforming adult behavior so that school could be a more joyous place for our students of color, and so that our students of color and particularly can see themselves as leaders of their own life.
Wonderful, wonderful. And your book that's coming out soon, it's what is the
Yes,
title
that is
again?
called The Pivot Plan.
Okay.
And it offers you 5 steps for becoming who you say you are.
Ah, I like that. I like that. Like that. Definitely gonna be checking that out.
Thank you. In fact, for your listeners, I am leaving you with a link. It's going to be at Taryn, so drtaryn.co
Uh-huh.
/clarity. So
Okay.
drtaryn.co /clarity. And you are actually going to get exclusive an audio summary of the book. So you can check it out before it's even available to buy.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. Love that. I love that it's in audio. I love listening to
Yes,
these. So
yes,
that's perfect. Perfect.
yes. It's
Wonderful.
it's pure 30 minutes of action. You'll be able to walk away with feeling less frustrated about what you need to be thinking about to do to get to your next level, and you will have clarity about what that looks like. You'll be able to feel more direction around what that is for you, because again, this isn't me telling you what to do, but this is me guiding you through the
Yeah.
process of what it looks like to be more in alignment with who you say you
Yeah.
are. So you will walk away with that, and you will definitely get something out of this. Listen, and you'll be able to do it while you're dropping off the kids or picking up groceries or whatever the case may be, bopping
Right.
around the house. You'll be able to do that and be a changed person in just 30 minutes or so.
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm looking forward to that. So, is there anything else you want to share with us today that maybe I didn't ask you about or we didn't cover? Anything that was on your mind to share?
You know what? I would like to leave your listeners with just a reminder that, all of your journey, whether it's building a business or pivoting in your career, the most important part of this is your ability to have ownership of what it is that you want and how you want it to look for you. So I would invite you to make your pivots personal. I would invite you to show up differently, even tomorrow. Maybe the way you're showing up differently tomorrow is that you're going to listen to this audiobook summary and take something away that you can implement right away, right? You're going to take action. Don't be afraid to rock the boat, okay? Leaders don't follow calm waters, they make waves.
Oh,
Yes. So I want to empower you to make some waves, because when you're aligned with your truth and you're owning your leadership, you don't just make an impact, you create lasting change. And I really
mm,
feel like the listeners here want to do that.
yes.
And so I want to leave you with that. What's your next move? What are you going to do differently? And I am here to help you. So when you listen to that audio summary, you'll have opportunities to connect with me directly. You should take me up on this offer. I want to help you. I want to be your flashlight.
Wonderful. I love that. You are here to be our flashlight.
I'm here. Yes.
So it's been a blast talking with you. I
Awesome.
just loved our conversation, all the gems that you dropped, all the great information, great tips, and just your perspective of how you look at things. So in closing, I want to ask you a couple of fun questions
Ooh, let's do fun.
so our
Okay.
audience can get to know the person. And the first one is going to be if you could have a conversation with anyone from history, who would you choose to have that conversation with and why?
Ooh, that's hard. But I feel like the first person coming to me is Maya Angelou.
Okay.
I just believe that in the times that Maya was living, for her to be so strong, have such a strong identity, so clear about who she is, so vulnerable with her words and so empowering at the same time. I just I just we don't necessarily see that kind of bravery in that way anymore. I mean, there's so many amazing women. So
Right.
I don't want to take anything away, but to do it in the times where it was really dangerous. It's dangerous right now. And I think many of us are feeling like it might be dangerous to do some of the things that our ancestors once did.
Right.
And I just feel like a conversation with her, which set me straight.
I got you.
Like, no, girl, it is time. It was time
Right.
yesterday. Go,
Right.
right? And
Because
I
she
just
has a way of saying things
yeah,
that
she
just
does.
she makes the point very clear. You're like, okay, yes, ma'am.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Right. And so I just feel like I would love to have dinner with her. And I'm sure so many would, right? That table would
Yes.
be filled with people to talk to with Maya Angelou. Love her.
Yes.
Dr. Maya Angelou would be mine.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, what was your favorite childhood game?
Oh, I like the game Sorry. I
Okay.
don't know if people played that. Sorry was one that I remember playing a lot with friends. But I was also one that made up a lot of games. I had a lot of fun building different communities with my friends and like clubs. So I would either make up a game or play the game Sorry.
Got it. Got it. Wonderful. Okay, what do you want to be remembered for?
Hmm. I would love to be remembered for empowering 1 million change makers to trust their pivots and make them powerful and purposeful in ways that really build a better world for us.
Hmm.
Um, I know that everyone makes pivots, and sometimes we're reacting to the world and we're pivoting out of reaction, right? Um, but I think the time now is needed to really think about what we want the world to look like in the future and what our position and what our plan will be. And I think if we're making pivots with that in mind, we're going to get to a place where our children and their children really feel proud about the work we've been doing. And so I would love for my grandchildren or my grandchildren's grandchildren to be like, wow, we have that legacy in our history,
Uh-huh.
right? We're part of that. We come from that kind of stock, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so I know I come from great stock and I just want to continue that in the way that I can. Um, but I just happen to also love change a little bit more
Mm.
than the average bear, right? If
Uh-huh.
I can help change feel joyous, intentional, and impactful to the next generation of leaders, that's what I'd want to do. That's what I'd want to be remembered for.
What would you say is currently your favorite place to travel to or your dream place to travel to? So favorite if you've been there before, Dream travel if you haven't been there, but you really want to go.
I have been traveling quite a bit to California, specifically the Bay Area, and I am like loving the vibe. So if you are in the Bay Area, I love it there. I feel like there's a home for me somewhere in the Bay Area.
It's getting
Um,
they're getting it ready for you right
yeah,
now.
yeah. I mean, the weather's great and they're northern, from LA and everything, but you can get there quickly. So definitely I'm feeling the vibe there, the Bay Area.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And last but not least, what is your favorite meal or favorite food?
I am a seafood girl. I love crab cakes.
Okay.
And I probably eat salmon way too much. I'm often like, should I get tested for mercury? Because like I eat so much salmon. So, but I love a really good crab cake if I can find one. Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Wonderful. Well, again, thank you so much for gracing us today with your presence, for the very candid and transparent conversation that we shared today. I really appreciate it. I want to, and as always, I want to wish you the very best of joy, health, and wealth. And we will be sure to put how our audience can contact you. But if you want to give your website address or any other social media handles, you can do that now.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing conversation as well. I mean, the time just flew by. I think we could talk longer, right?
Mhm.
And I want to invite the audience to keep the conversation going with me. You can find me on LinkedIn at drtaryn.co. I'm also on Instagram at Dr. Taryn Fletcher. And my website is drtaryn.co, and you're going to listen right to this free audio summary of my book because no one else gets to listen. Like this is why you
Yes,
do it. No one else
exclusive,
has
guys,
it. It's
exclusive.
exclusive
Yes.
at drtaryn.co/clarity. And I invite you, tell me what you think. I really want to hear from you. It's been a
Wonderful,
pleasure.
wonderful. Today's podcast is being sponsored by Your 90-Day Success Journal for Black Women Entrepreneurs by Lynette Cottrell. The journal is available on Amazon. It's inclusive of monthly goals, weekly and daily goals, affirmations, self-care practices, and inspiring quotes from other Black women. Be sure to get your copy today. Your 90-Day Success Journal. Hey sis, so thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you got some great gems today from our beautiful Black woman entrepreneur. You got inspired to go do more. You got re-energized and refreshed. We want you to take the best care of yourself. It is our deep belief that we as Black women entrepreneurs deserve to build our wealth without sacrificing our joy or our health. So we deserve to have the joy, the health, and the wealth. And we love helping you to get there. Again, be sure to leave a comment, rate our podcast, and share it with another beautiful Black woman that you know of. Visit our website at www.wocib.org and check out the great merch we have there for you and the workshops. We're working on some wonderful things for you. All right. We look forward to staying in touch. And until next time, be well.